Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome once again. As is our custom, we go around at this time to introduce ourselves, and then I'll get the chance to introduce our speaker for the day. So let me start with myself. I'm Oswaldo.
Stuart. Robert. Shantanu. I'm Greg.
Jason.
Scott.
My name is Cass.
Don.
I'm Jim.
I'm Roy.
My name is Jerry.
I'm John.
I'm Jeff.
My name is Ray. Larry.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Jacob.
Jack.
I'm Brian. I'm Rob.
Peter.
John.
I'm Hal.
Mark.
I'm Tim.
I'm Richard.
Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce once again our speaker, Joe Rodriguez. As I recall, he was here just before the beginning of the Trump era. I gave us that time.
Don't blame me on that.
Joe is a Zen practitioner in the Suzuki-Roshi lineage. He's studying under Fu Schroeder, the abiding abbess at Green Gulch Farm Zen Center. He serves as a board member of the San Francisco Zen Center. As an executive and an LGBT activist, his practice is to bring awareness, truth, and forgiveness to daily life. His topic will be Pink, Proud, and Present, realizing our Buddha nature as LGBT practitioners. Welcome once again.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say, to start off, Happy Father's Day. Anyone here who is a biological father? Great. Thanks, Hal. Anyone who's an uncle? Great. Teacher? Mentor to kids? Well, I just want to say it's a really beautiful thing, and we'll touch on some of those topics today as we talk about this. I'm going to be referring to LGBTQII people throughout my conversation, but I'm going to shortcut it. I'm just going to use the word queer. I know some people like it and some people don't, but I may use gay interchangeably too. And usually I give a Dharma talk here to this group maybe once a year, and I think this is going to be a little different. You can see I actually have some technology, so I'd like to make sure you can see the screen, but I brought in some extra speakers so you can hear a little video that I'm going to run. But this talk that I want to give, and you can tell by the unusual title, is really a heart talk. So there might be some times during this conversation where you notice that you're slumping or you're protecting your heart. I just encourage you to open it, because that's really what a lot of our practice is about, is really being heartfelt and compassionate and, the embodiment of love. So I've been known to give some serious Dharma talks that are about, sometimes even a little down, I would say. And I wanted to do something that was really upbeat and celebratory to kick off Pride. And I think it's a really great opportunity for us to celebrate our lives living as openly queer people, and as we practice, especially as we practice the teachings of the Buddha here in this community. And I'm going to be bringing in some of those teachings as we talk. But this year has been a big year for me. I turned 57, and I had a couple of experiences that really got my attention. First off, there was a ABC miniseries called When We Rise. Did anyone see that? Just show of hands. Great. Well, it was sort of a mini history of the gay rights movement, written by Dustin Lance Black, and it was on ABC television, one of the old mainstream television stations. It was almost shocking to believe that the history of the gay rights movement was on mainstream TV. I almost had to pinch myself. And it was both wonderful and eerie watching the events of the gay rights movement, particularly here in San Francisco, where a place that I've lived for over 25 years. And it really brought some real memories back to me. The series shows basically the struggle as well as the beauty of our lives. And one of the things I remember early on, I think it was 1990, and there had been a big ACT UP demonstration at the corner of Castro and Market Street. And the ACT UP activists had shut down Market Street. And the police response at the time was to shut down Market Street, or shut down Castro, and they went after gay people on the street. There was and in fact, some of the ACT UP activists, I was in a restaurant at the time, and I had just moved to San Francisco, and these guys had come up and they had blood on them. They had been hit over the head with batons, and they came up to the restaurant where we were hiding from the police. Another experience that I had this year was a very young gay man contacted me because he had heard one of my Dharma talks here at GBF, but by remotely. And when he moved to San Francisco, he looked me up and tracked me down and said, "Hey, I'd really like to go out to coffee with you and talk to you about being gay, being a Buddhist practitioner, and some of the history." And one of the things we were talking about, he was saying, well, he's like 22, 24, and he was asking me what it was like to be gay, and I said back then, and it's funny, I don't even consider myself to be old, even though I am 57. And one of the weird things was, I remember telling him, I was trying to how could I telegraph the difference between now and back then, beyond some of the obvious things. One of the things I remember was, I came out in 1982, and just about when I was coming out, gay people started opening bars, especially outside of San Francisco, because San Francisco had been early to do this, opening bars where you can see out to the street, windows in and out, so you could see the gay people in, and the gay people could see the people on the street. That was a huge change. And it sort of showed just the openness and where our community was going. And he was like, "Really? You had to go to back alley bars?" And I said, "Yeah, they tended to have the same names, and they were owned by the mafia a lot of times. They pay off the police." And both of these things really got me to thinking. It was really tough to be gay in the early 1980s. And it was even tougher to be gay before that. But like so many of you, I came out in the middle of an epidemic. And at the same time, there was beauty too. I learned to date from my heart, create a circle of friends, fight like hell for my community, make my fair share of mistakes. But also during that time, I started meditating as a way of just calming down my really crazy monkey mind, and a way of just improving the quality of my life, my close relationships, and even my experiences dating. So thinking about the past, I can see that we have come a long way, baby, from being on the fringes of society to being at least tolerated in most parts of America. And while I often think about my friends who didn't survive the plague years, I feel that their spirits are alive with me, and through the generations of younger LGBT people out there today. And I felt this gay pride last night. I happened to go to the gay men's chorus thing, and it was called, the title of it is the gay kitchen sink. And they had the Kinsey Six playing, and If you've never been to the Gay Men's Chorus, it's really quite an experience, and it's such a celebratory thing of who we are. So as I sit here on this very warm day, I'm feeling a bit older and a bit wiser, and I'm so grateful to be alive right now and be with all of you. Perhaps the most telling measure of how far our community has come is that when a young gay man recently asked me, completely in earnest, why do we celebrate Pride? Just, wow. Made me stop for a second. So I paused and I said, because of shame, which is the opposite of pride. As I talked about a lot in my session last summer, our people have been shamed for eons. Shame for the way God or nature made us. Shame for the way we express our love and desire. But enough about that. We all know that, and we'll live through that. Somehow we've survived homophobia, discrimination, and AIDS, and even thrived, largely accepting ourselves and becoming part of this very unusual group here today, the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Just think about those words for a moment. Gay, Buddhist, and fellowship. All of us queer people have found our way to the Bay Area and come together in this Sangha to practice in safety and fellowship in order to strip away our layers of delusion and realize more of our innate Buddha nature. In the 2,500 years of Buddhism, this Sangha is a remarkable expression of our self-love and spiritual intentions. Something that I bet our gay ancestors cherish and celebrate as much as we do. So, I want to have a little bit more of a celebration today. So I thought, I came across this really powerful video. It's a TED Talk. And it was given by a straight physician last year, I believe at a conference, a TED Talk in Ireland. And he's going to talk about his son and homosexuality. So hopefully this technology will all work. Let's see. Then we'll talk some more.
One summer evening, your old son Jimmy said he wanted to talk. So after my wife Joan and I got his 3 much younger siblings tucked in, read their bedtime stories, Joan and I sat down in our bedroom. Jimmy came in and closed the door behind him. And he sat down on the chair across from the bed where we were sitting. He says, Mom and Dad, I have something important to tell you, and it's not a problem, it's not a bad thing, it's just different. I said, okay. And he looked at us in earnest, and he said, I'm gay. So after a few seconds of deafening silence, Joan takes a deep breath and says, Jimmy, we will love whoever you love. That was about 12 years ago when he came out to us, and I'll have to admit that at the time, Joan and I did think this could be a problem for his safety, even. And as his father, I had this feeling that somehow I had failed him, and maybe because of that, he wouldn't have a chance to have kids of his own. So, I'm a cardiologist, and I like to imagine the world through the eyes of a hunter-gatherer ancestor for clues about how to thrive in the modern world. But viewed in the light of evolution, homosexuality seems to be a real self-defeating, non-productive strategy. I mean, gays have 80% fewer kids than heterosexuals. This is a trait that ought to go extinct in a few generations. But down through recorded history, In every culture, and many animal species as well, homosexuality has been a small but distinct subgroup. If this were a genetic error, natural selection should have long ago culled this from the gene pool. So while I was pondering this paradox about the natural origins of homosexuality, our babies grew up. Jimmy has 3 younger siblings who adore him. He has this magnetism and this charming wit that helps them feel happy and relaxed. And one day while contemplating this Jimmy effect, it suddenly dawned on me, homosexuality is not so much about sex, it's really more about survival. The family's survival. So us, Homo sapiens, we are among the most social species on Earth. For us, it's not just a kill or be killed struggle for existence. It's a snuggle for existence. You know, an ability to love our family and bond with our group determines, in many cases, whether we survive or perish. So it's the survival of the fittest family, not the fittest individual. So you share 50% of your DNA with your siblings. Your nieces and nephews share 25% of your DNA. From evolution's perspective, you have the same genetic success if you raise one child on your own, or you enable a sibling to raise 2 children. From evolution's perspective, this is all about cooperation and altruism. Homosexuality is genetically programmed altruism. Gays are designed by nature to help us be kind to one another, like Ellen DeGeneres says. So E.O. Wilson, probably the greatest evolutionary biologist since Darwin himself, says homosexuality gives advantages to the group by specialized talents and unusual qualities of personality. So a society that condemns homosexuality harms itself. So what does Professor Wilson mean by unusual qualities of personality? Well, let me tell you about our dear family friend, Jenny. She is 35, single, straight. She was telling us she is looking for a man who's smart and funny, who's sensitive, who's a good listener. And she says she occasionally meets a guy like that, but she complains, you know, he usually has a boyfriend already. So people tend to obsess what gays do or don't do in the bedroom. It's really this distinctive personality and a strong intellect that are more critical from evolution's perspective. So scientific studies do indeed show that people in the sexual minority tend to be intelligent, particularly when it comes to emotional intelligence. So this study showed that boys and girls who scored in the very bright IQ range were twice as likely to be homosexual as adults as those children who scored in the low to average range. And among gay males, on psychological testing, those that scored the gay males tended to score higher in metrics of compassion and cooperation, and lower in metrics of hostility. So, if Michelangelo had been straight, he might have just wallpapered the Sistine Chapel. Songwriter Sam Austin says, homosexuality is God's way of assuring the truly gifted aren't burdened with children. But today in the U.S., about 2 out of every 25 people are in the sexual minority. Diversity is nature's secret weapon. If all males were gay, that would be a problem. But if all males were warriors, we'd always be at war. The recipe for a successful human culture is a synergy of many different ingredients. Homosexuality is like a catalyst to help emotionally connect groups of people together. For heterosexuals to disapprove of gays is kind of like the white flour in bread disapproving of the yeast. So if your genome is your hardware, epigenetics is your software. You have many different DNA programs downloaded on your DNA. And epigenetics chooses from among these to determine which version of you actually is the best fit for the environment. So ants, you probably didn't know it, but are another highly social species that have epigenetic mechanisms very similar to humans. These two are identical twin sisters. Huh? even though their DNA sequences are exactly the same, this one, the worker, is a brainy little scurrier who goes out looking for food, whereas the one on the right, the soldier, is obviously a brawny one to fight off enemies. So the queen ant epigenetically orchestrates this by placing different epigenetic tags on the developing ants. So she places tags when the colony is under attack to uncoil the DNA and light up the genes to make the soldier. But when a colony is hungry, she puts different tags to uncoil the DNA and epigenetically create the conditions for the worker. So in this way, the epigenetics is the dynamic power of epigenetics. It changes our genetic expression so that we're born with traits that allow us and our families the best chance to succeed in the current conditions. So you probably have gay genes in your DNA. But unless they were turned on in your mother's womb, they remain coiled up and silent. A recent groundbreaking study from UCLA found that by looking at a group of men, some gay, some straight, and looking at epigenetic tags in 9 different sites, they could predict with 70% accuracy their sexual orientation. So what conditions in the uterus turn on those gay genes? So for a male, your chances of homosexuality increase in proportion to the number of previous baby boys who inhabited your mother's uterus. So for every older biological brother you have, your chances of being born gay go up 33%. Long before we invented the pill, nature devised homosexuality as a prescription for birth control. After 4 straight heterosexual males, nature says, enough already. And the mom's immune system switches on the epigenetic switch, so a gay male is born into the family. This one will not be overburdening the clan with yet more mouths to feed in the next generation. Sometimes more is better. And he's not going to be killing his brother in a fight over who gets the girl. Thankfully, the sexual minority these days have many options for having kids of their own, and I have a hunch my gay son may bless us with grandchildren before our three straight children do. So another gene, this one on the X chromosome, is called a male-loving gene, because when it shows up in a female, she tends to mate early and have a lot of kids. But when the male-loving gene shows up in a male, it predisposes to homosexuality. So this is another gene that balances a family destined to have a large brood of kids and grandkids with an occasional gay son whose natural tendency to promote togetherness could improve the chances of survival for the whole family. Now, I apologize. We have a lot more science about sexual orientation in men than in women, so this talk is mostly about gay males, though I have no doubt that female homosexuality is also a natural variation that is advantageous for the family and the community. But Jimmy has no older brothers. Why is he gay? So when Joan was pregnant with him, we discovered a large cancer growing in her chest. Metastasis in the neck. It was a scary time. She had to have radiation therapy to her chest while Jimmy was still in the 3rd trimester. It was a rocky start for little Jimmy. Miraculously, they both survived and are in great health today. But in fact, severe prenatal stress does predispose to homosexuality. In this study, 37% of gay males reported that their mother suffered severe prenatal stress, compared to only 3% of heterosexual males' moms. This is kind of like the queen ant, where the mom is placing epigenetic markers on the baby to change his identity to help the future welfare of the family. It's as if the mom was saying, I'm in trouble here. I need a kind and clever ally to help me hold this family together. So to summarize, if the family is flush with plenty of kids, and or it's a stressful place and time, nature occasionally flips these epigenetic switches to turn on the gay genes. This alters brain development that changes sexual orientation and also improves emotional intelligence. I have no doubt that Jimmy was born gay. Here's his first birthday party. When he was 3, he said, Mommy, when I grow up, I want to marry Daddy. Now, some parents send their kid away, to well-meaning parents to a conversion camp to pray away the gay. You might as well send the kid to a camp to convert his eye color from brown to blue. Not happening. So, but Jimmy is like social glue holding our family together. Whether his brother Evan gets beat up in a bar fight, or his sister Caroline gets dumped by a boyfriend, or his sister Kathleen gets busted for plagiarizing Wikipedia. They know Jimmy's made them feel like they belong to something bigger than their problems. So, storytelling is the great survival skill of the Irish. And right here in Dublin, 162 years ago, one of your finest storytellers was born, Oscar Wilde. Oscar went away to the University of Oxford, where he met a young poet named Bosie Douglas. Their long-standing, openly gay relationship infuriated and humiliated Bosie's father, Lord Queensberry. I'm not making this up. who was so mad that he eventually had Oscar arrested for gross indecency, thrown into a dungeon for 2 years of hard labor. Oscar died 3 years later, a young man. Oscar wrote, "Always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much." But these days, open homophobia is being replaced by more of a subtle heterosexism, where people in the sexual minority are often considered second-class citizens. Boy George says this is an illusion that homosexuals have sex and heterosexuals fall in love. That's completely untrue. We all want to be loved. I agree. Among all the things in life it'd be hardest to live without, love would come first. But indoor plumbing and toilet paper are pretty high up there too, right? I want to tell you about one more study. This one, a heartbreaking nationwide study from the U.S. that looked at U.S. teens, and they found that those in the sexual minority were twice as likely to be bullied, 5 times more likely to have attempted suicide. 29% of gay teens had tried to kill themselves. These days, around the world, many countries, it's illegal to have same-sex physical intimacy. In many countries, it's punishable by death. In the red countries, it's punishable by imprisonment. In India, the law states 14 years to life because homosexuality is against the order of nature. Except that it's not. Nature prescribes homosexuality at specific times and places, and endows these people with special traits to help the people around them flourish. What is against the order of nature is the ongoing persecution of the sexual minority. These are not confused or defective people that need to be cured or punished or ostracized. They need to be accepted for who they are and embraced. They make us better. If you had told me 30 years ago, as I held my baby boy, that he would grow up to be gay, I would have been devastated. But looking back, I see Mother Nature knew what she was doing. Her clairvoyant intelligence, forged during eons of evolution, instinctively knew my family would need the advantages of a gay son. Now, admittedly, the science of homosexuality is still in its infancy. But as his father, what I can tell you for sure is that Jimmy is exactly who he was meant to be, and my family is stronger and happier because he's in our clan. How about you? Can you set sex aside? Realize gay men and gay women are essential to humanity. We're like the ants. It's in our diversity where we find our collective strength. Thank you.
So, what do you guys think of that? You know, I'm just going to open it up now. I'm going to have a little bit of discussion of this before we go further. Yes.
I've got 3 older brothers. I fit the pattern. I'm the oldest, but my mother was under a lot of female stress.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I knew some of these studies, but I didn't know of them all together. That's why it really hit me so well. I think it's such a great thing to. I think every gay or every queer person should see this video, as well as straight people too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard talk about them looking for the gay gene for so long. He makes it sound like they found it, which I don't know. I mean,
I think what he was saying was, and I'm not a scientist, I'm actually a liberal arts other side of the equation, but it sounds like he was saying that there's genetic code in most people that can be gay, and it's the epigenetic factors turn on the epigenetic software to go gay.
Right. What is his name?
Dr. O'Keefe.
O'Keefe.
Yeah, and you just Google TED Talk and O'Keefe or homosexuality. This comes up because so many people have watched. Yes.
I particularly loved this, and it made a lot of things click in my mind. My mother was one of 12 children, 8 boys, 4 girls. 2 of the boys never married. Both were in the closet, except that one died fairly early on, so I never remember him. Yeah, acting on this. The other one was kind of a bitch at times, but he was responsible for sponsoring 20 some odd of our relatives into the country at a time when we would have been having a much harder time in the early years of the Cuban Revolution. And he set people up, and we thrived as a family. And the older I get, the more I recognize the tremendous impact he had on the big clan. So it's really interesting when you have a lot of examples, and 2 out of 8 men. Yeah.
Well, I think that thought that we are almost like, we're not better or worse than straight people, but we've been the special role in the family, in our culture. And I know, having come here now the last 12 years or so, I know some of you guys, and I know like Jerry's tutoring, as he's retired, he's tutoring kids, and I know other of you have been doing all sorts of things. I know that Roy, his role in his family, and just the powerful thing. I think that's one of the greatest things, besides the science of this, which, we're against nature, we're some sort of abomination, and we're against the natural law. His theory is we're very much part of the natural law and playing this special social role. And you think about it, what he was talking about, emotional intelligence, being agents of love and compassion. And I think that's particularly important that we're here. I mean, that's why we're here, right here in this Buddhist Sangha. That's really the heart of Buddhism, is interconnection and love and compassion. And I think, about all the struggles that I went through to get to this place right here, right now, about doubting my sexuality or sexual orientation, thinking something was wrong with me when I was really young, and to be here and to think like, now they're genetically or scientifically understanding where we've come from. It's pretty remarkable. And I just think it's also really important information to counter people who basically use fear and ignorance against us, against gay people throughout the world. Was there anything else that was interesting to you? Do you guys agree with that? Do you think gay people have more emotional intelligence? Yes.
I'm very grateful to be here today. This is first time for me to experience something like this. I just moved here, so I've been here about a month, and I'm really enjoying it. But about the talk, I never realized, I never thought about it that way. I guess I can relate in the sense that I am like that glue. And I didn't realize that until lately when my little brothers and sisters and mom would be like, hey, we miss you so much, you know? And I didn't think about it that way. I guess I do have that difference. I do make that dent. So I mean, I just found that really, it just kind of hit home when I heard that, because yeah, it just meant a lot to me. So thanks.
Thank you for sharing. There's some, yes, Hal.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed that. And it underlined for me a realization I've had at times in the past, and I've come to call it the queer eye.
Yeah.
And it's about standing outside of what everybody else is agreeing is reality and saying, well, wait a minute, it's a little bit different from my point of view. And often I think queer people perform a service just by telling people, take a minute and take another look. Things are not what you assume. And it was much more settled when I was younger about what was real and what was right. But, you know, and that made queer people so self-doubting, you know, and caused much distress, and it still does today, but there's much more support for the queer eye. There was even a television show. So, yeah, that reinforced that insight for me. And it's been very important in my life. I actually feel that having that queer eye has brought me to Buddhism, because I was raised Catholic and I just kept questioning what they were presenting to me as the way things were. So,
thank you for sharing. That's right on. It does give us a special quality. Any other comments on that? Yes.
Well, I've often thought that as a result of growing up as an outsider and hiding, and that I tend to more support the underdog and so forth. And that was purely environmental from growing up in. And I wonder sometimes if kids growing up nowadays, where that doesn't pertain, are they going to lose something or not get something that we had? Well, after hearing this talk, I'm thinking maybe not. But I still think that my experience, and like many of others, having to wrestle with society and find our own way, we may have an advantage over our younger brothers.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always difficult being different in society. So that probably will keep on. And in fact, there's still, like he was talking about, 30% of LGBT youth contemplate killing themselves. Even today, it's unbelievable. And so there's a lot of challenges and a lot of history to overcome. But you know, one of the things that struck me is when I came out, like all those years ago, I read about that gay people had this history of being the shamans, the priests, the teachers, many times the change agents in society, you know, artists, poets, philosophers, the peacemakers. And that really syncs with what, you know, Dr. O'Keefe is talking about, being one of those people that is able to really skillfully work between both the male and female gender. And I think, you know, when I first came out, I'm embarrassed to say this, I was like, I'm one of those straight acting gays. I really thought that was cool. And it really was my own internalized homophobia that was coming out. And as I've gotten older, I realized there's aspects of me that are traditionally feminine, and there's parts of me that are competitive and whatever. And I laugh because my friends this week the Warriors won the championship, and I was just over the moon on that. But the next day I'm watching Victoria at Masterpiece Theater, and I love to be able to go back and forth between those things. But I feel like, wow, we're no better or no worse, but we play a special role in society. That helps me stand up a little straighter and when I see other gay people, almost bless them, given all the things that we've had to overcome. And I really like this idea, this positive message that we can put out there, because, it's our society's fear of the feminine that has kept gay people down for so long. We've been ridiculed, discriminated against, killed, marginalized, even so today. And at the same time, we've given our strengths to society. And I feel like we're on the cusp of something where society may change its mind about us, where we don't have to operate on this sort of margins, but we're fully at the table of society. And I really feel like this whole Trumpism thing and the sort of anger around about political correctness is really signs that the patriarchy, the idea that, being a male in a very narrow way is on the decline. And I really feel that. I think people are really beginning to question what I call the unearned privileges of white straight men, at least in our society. And increasingly, young people are really speaking out against homophobia, transphobia, sexism, racism. And just in last week alone, in the country, I think it was Serbia, elected its first lesbian premier to head the government. And in the same week, one of the most Catholic countries in the world, Ireland, elected a gay prime minister. And if you think about it, look at the new leader of France, as well as Justin Trudeau of Canada. There's a new model emerging for what straight men can be. These people are not people who are afraid of equality or of gay people or of women. They actually embrace it. So I feel step by step, as gay people and as Buddhist practitioners, we are finally taking our rightful place in society, sharing our unique gifts and talents, and letting go of layers and layers of delusions. I mean, that's really the whole thing about Buddhism. You're stripping away layers and layers of delusion. So I want to end this talk by doing a short guided meditation. Maybe take 30 minutes. So as you do this, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, but particularly, I would really like you to sit in such a way where your heart is open, not scrunched down, whatever. Just keep your heart open. So close your eyes. And just breathe. A big in-breath. Just let it go. Again, breathe in and let it go. And just keep breathing like that. And in your mind's eye, I'd like you to think about yourself at the age of 15. 15 years old, in high school. Really try to get a picture of yourself at that age. And see that being very, very clearly. And let go of any judgment you may have about him or her. And in a very objective way, I want you to see your own beauty at 15 years of age. Your innocence. Your personality. Think of some of the unique gifts you had at that age. So keep that person in mind as I say the following words. And just let my words sink in to your 15-year-old self. You are exactly as nature or spirit made you. You are whole and complete. Your queer sexual orientation is beautiful and natural. I'm going to say that again. Your queer sexual orientation is beautiful and natural. You possess rare emotional gifts that the world and your family needs. You need to love and celebrate yourself so you can fully realize your potential to share love with others, to be that social agent in your community. There may be people in your life that criticize and discriminate against you. It will hurt. But forgive others' ignorance and fear. Always know deep down that you are a beautiful child of God or nature. You are perfect the way you are. And you will end up in the San Francisco Bay Area, getting the opportunity to study and practice Buddhism, becoming a little more and more present in each moment. You are no better or no worse than your heterosexual brothers and sisters. But your role in the family and community are important. When you see other LGBT people in the world, bless them. I will say it again. You are exactly as nature made you. Safe, healed, and complete. And lastly, one day, you will be proudly pink and more present in your everyday life. And you will meet others who are like you. I guarantee it. So you can open your eyes. I just want to say thank you. Let's celebrate this Pride, 2 weeks period with just all our being, blessing yourself and blessing everyone you meet as the real little Buddhas that they are. Thank you. Do we have time for any comments? Or
We have a whole bunch of time.
Great. So, any comments, questions?
moved to San Francisco in '73, so I had a different experience than a lot of people because I just kind of sailed through and had a ball. But my point is, the parade has changed so much, but now I see Wells Fargo Bank and Apple, and that's great. What I really miss is the edgy people that used to be part of the parade. There used to be a lot more people in costumes, and it's just kind of a little homogenized, and there's a really lovely aspect to that, but I kind of miss that edginess that used to be part of that, being kind of outrageous. Used to have, once we had people with parade signs, God said Adam and Eve and Adam and Steve, and I did something really outrageous I won't go into with them, but, so it's great that we have that kind of support, but I sort of miss that we've lost some of the edge, that's all.
It's a good point, and your opportunity to queer it up a little bit, I understand. Yes.
Recently, you talked maybe in Trinity, some time ago I was talking to someone. His older came out to be gay, and he's been dating. He was confessing to me that it's been difficult to date man than woman. And that you talk about emotional intelligence. I said that's a really individual person to have a really mature emotional intelligence. And you're talking about, for example, the play Boys in the Band. They treat each gay man so viciously that I don't see the emotional intelligence in that. So I'm trying to give a different perspective.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and I think we've had this emotional intelligence, and we've actually been very good, I think, generally in society. But sometimes we've turned that internalized homophobia on each other, and we can see it. I mean, you think about how straight people are socialized. They, at least in this country, in the last 30 or 40 years. You start dating when you're 13, right after puberty. You start, there's like dances you can go to. There's role models that you have. Gay people didn't have that, up until recently they didn't have that. And there was all sorts of, when you're treated, and the cost of shame and hiding is very high emotionally, because you lose your authenticity. And then when you come out, you're almost like in high school again, like you're still learning how to date and deal with conflict and say your honest expression. So it's no wonder that we've really been challenged that way. But, we have the capacity to have, when we do it, we have great relationships in the world. And if sometimes on the dating part, we just have to get the garbage out of there. And Buddhism is a tool for that, so is therapy and other things. Yes?
I was thinking about that, the idea of emotional intelligence. I do think it's true there is a certain degree of emotional intelligence that comes from being like an outlier or an outsider in any aspect, whether it's your sexuality or culture or whatever it is. But and I was just thinking about kind of what you were just saying. Sometimes, emotional intelligence, you can do, it's like the Wizard of Oz. You can be the good witch or the bad witch, right? You can have a venomous tongue, and you can be quite hurtful if you have emotional intelligence, because you know exactly how to hurt people, because you have that. I remember when my brother. That's right. When my brother is my older brother, one time, whenever he would get a little angry or violent, threaten violence with me, I was never afraid of him because I had emotional intelligence and I could just bring him to tears like that, just say a few things, and I would just be know exactly what to say, and he would just be oh, and he was this big, muscly, macho, teenager. And that was because my mother's how do you do that to him?
I wish I could do that.
But it's kind of like that thing.
It's the reading the beads gene.
Yeah.
but it's a really good point, and it's something I want to talk about is we have to be very kind, especially people that we romantically date, in this regard, because we scar each other that way. And we have to treat each other with a lot of kindness And because we have special gifts, and it's really important that we treat each other with as much care and attention as we can, because we are gifted in that way. I really feel it's the same thing. Thank you. Yes.
That was probably the most positive talk I ever heard about gay people in my 72 years. And I really appreciate your bringing it in.
Thank you.
And I thought of Professor Marian Diamond, who was at Berkeley. I worked at Berkeley for a long time, and she was a specialist on the brain. And she was talking to high school teachers one summer, and one guy who was appeared to be kind of homophobic said, well, what's wrong with the brains of some of these men who act kind of effeminate? And she was just beautiful. She said, well, there are differences between the male brain and the female brain. And some of the female brains have some of the male characteristics on it, and vice versa. And then she just went on to the next question. But, she just didn't blink, and so the guy wasn't insulted, It turned out that he did ask a very intelligent question, as she saw it, and she was able to provide that answer. And I was also thinking about Boys in the Band. It was the first gay play, and it really showed where gay was struggling,
right.
The struggle of the gay people to try to come out. I mean, it was. I saw it in New York in the day I saw it, these limos pulled out, and everybody who was anybody wanted to see that play.
Right.
And it wasn't because they wanted to see a put down of gays. I mean, they knew there was something special going on, and they wanted to be there. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I just thought that line, I guess this famous biologist or science person who said that we have, what was that line? We have specialized talents and unusual qualities of personality. That makes me laugh. I think that's really, but I really do want to just say on this, just to conclude this, please be really kind to yourself. And that's why I was talking to your 15-year-old self. That's a lot of what we carry around. Be kind and celebrate that person. And then, by extension, celebrate that love and to other gay people, other queer people. We really need it. We have a special job to do. And, we really need all our powers to be that little Buddha out there in the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. This is the time for announcements. We're going to be spending the next half hour in the social session over there in the next room. Announcements. I see a hand going.
Yes, the annual GBF retreat at Vajrapani is October 27th to 29th. Steve Turney is going to be our Dharma teacher, and the theme is dwelling happily in things as they are. Consider how we maintain balance in the world spinning so quickly. Registration hasn't opened, but do save the dates. It should be right.
So again, the dates are
October 27th to 29th.
And it's on the GBF website under retreats.
Any other announcements? Well, I know you're going to be making, you're going to be our host, but I see did you want to?
Well, Joe Good isn't here, but his performance weekend is coming up next weekend, so I would put that out there as something to put on your calendars.
Do you know the specific title of what the performance is going to be?
I can't remember what the title of his
he sent
show
it out
this year.
Yeah, he sent it out recently.
Group.
He's also the cover story in the pink section today. I'm your host today. Please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha, the retreats, and there's hot water for tea. If you have some tea, leave your cup in the sink and I'll take care of it. I'll be going around with a Dharma bowl, so contribute whatever feels right to you. And at 12:30, some people gather together at the front door and to explore the gay brunch. And anybody is welcome to join and participate in that.
And speaking of the Dana Bowl, I forgot to mention that, of course, that's the contribution is what sustains all the activities we do, including the rental of this room and all the other various outreach efforts that we have.
Yeah, I saw that the National Theatre of Great Britain production of Angels in America has been videotaped, and it's going to be playing at the Elmwood Theatre in that those British videotape series that they have at the end of July. And I read some of the British reviews, and Nathan Lane plays Roy Coney. He got great reviews. And Andrew Garfield, I think, plays Stephen. And there's another great actor, young actor, I can't remember his name, who plays the Mormon lawyer. Anyway, it just, I think I've seen about 5 professional drugs at that play. I just can't get enough of it. And about a year from now, Berkeley Records is going to do it. So there's a lot of opportunity to see this really probably the greatest play of the American play of the 20th century.
Also, one other thing too is if you get a chance to go to the Frameline Film Festival down at the Castro, well, it's playing in a number of places, but if you get a chance to go to, if you're new to San Francisco like you are, sitting in the Castro Theater with 2,000 of your closest gay and lesbian friends, bisexual, transgender friends, it's a pretty amazing experience. Just for that alone. It's just something that I think people come from around the world to actually experience. It's a great theater, but it's such a historic neighborhood, and it's like sort of like a center of, almost epicenter of gay life in America. So.
And again, welcome to your first visit over here in this, the first go around. What's your name again?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm Edward.
Edward. So just
all
make
right.
sure to say welcome, Edward. Next up.
I appreciate that.
Okay, folks, let's do our dedication of merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow, and may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.